He grabbed her arm in the mess hall. 3 black SUVs arrived before he could let go. So tell me, sweetheart, what exactly does a girl like you contribute here? Or did nobody think to point you toward the coffee station when you came through the gate? The words dropped through the noon clatter of the mess hall like a blade waiting to fall. Not striking yet, just hanging there. Visible to all 43 people who go still at exactly the same moment, Lieutenant Colonel Marcus Webb delivers it to the back of her regulation bun without reducing his volume by a single decibel. He is not speaking to her. He is speaking to the 8 officers at the center table who have worked under him for 2 years and have learned, without being taught, which direction the laughter is supposed to go. To the MPs near the south entrance, still deciding whether this requires their involvement. To the 43 witnesses arranged in the specific social geometry of a base mess hall at noon, steel trays on service rails, boots finding grip on polished concrete, the AC unit cycling through its industrial frequency overhead, the twin smells of gun oil and cordite so thoroughly embedded in everyone's clothing that they have long since stopped registering. 3 combat tours. 17 ribbons arranged across his chest in regulation order, arms crossed like he owns not just this building, but the ground it sits on, the airspace above it, the coordinates themselves. He stands the way men stand when they have been deferred to long enough that performing and being have become the same thing entirely. His shadow falls across her tray. She does not look up. 32 years old. Slight build. Plain BDUs with no rank insignia, a deliberate absence that reads as civilian adjacent to anyone looking at her the way Webb is looking at her, which is to say, not really looking at all, looking at a category he has already assigned. Regulation bun. A topographic section spread beside an untouched food tray, a pencil moving across it in a small, precise hand with the specific angle and consistent pressure of someone not consulting a map for the first time, but retrieving something from memory, or from somewhere below memory, somewhere the body holds. Her hands do not adjust when his shadow reaches her tray. Her posture does not shift. She does not flinch. Webb takes 1 step closer. His shadow deepens. His boots make a sound on the concrete, approaching, deliberate. I asked you a question, miss. Personnel without active assignment clearance in this section are required to. Wrong question, sir. She says it without raising her eyes. Not dismissive. Not sharp. Exact, the way a person speaks when they are carrying considerably more information than the conversation contains, and have made a quiet, deliberate choice to release only the minimum required. Then she returns to the map. In the far corner of the mess hall, the corner that holds clean sightlines to both exits, the service corridor, and the main entrance, Master Sergeant Calvin Rhodes stops his pen mid-sentence and does not move it again. 62 years old. 37 years of service. The kind of face that stopped being surprised by most things a long time ago, worn into a specific, practiced patience the way stone takes on the shape of whatever water moves across it long enough. He came in for lunch and spent 9 minutes watching the entrance before he sat down. Because 9 minutes of watching doorways is simply what 37 years looks like when it takes a break. He noticed her when she came in. Not the way Webb noticed her. Not as a type, not as a problem to address, not as a category to assign and move past. As an anomaly, as a thing that does not fit the frame that is being built around it. The way she placed her tray, no adjustment for weight. The movement of someone who has handled what she is carrying so many times that the assessment happens below conscious thought. The way the pencil moved across the map without searching, not consulting the grid, not cross-referencing landmarks, finding coordinates located from memory or from something deeper than memory, The place in the body where things that have been trained long enough simply live. Plain BDUs. No insignia. But posture that does not need insignia to say something. The kind of posture that has been drilled past the point where it requires effort, past the point where it can be turned off, until it becomes structural, part of the body's architecture, rather than a choice the body makes. His pen stays stopped. She said 3 words to Webb and returned to her work. Something about this woman. He does not try to name it yet. 37 years has taught him that naming things too quickly is how you get them wrong. His jaw tightens slightly. He goes back to watching. By 12:15, the story has a second version moving through the base. By 12:35, a third. By 1300, it has become what these things always become on closed installations. A story that stopped being about what happened and started being about what the person retelling it needs it to mean. In the version reaching the motor pool at 12:55, she didn't know what base she was on. In the version arriving at the armory by 13:10, she argued with him and was escorted out. In the version circulating through the junior officer's thread by 13:25, she turned out to be a contractor from a company nobody had ever heard of, trying to access classified terminals she had no clearance for, and Webb caught it. In all versions, she is small, confused, and misplaced. In all versions, Webb's name appears at the top, positioned correctly. She is in the mess hall annex at 12:20, alone at a 2-person table, eating food she is not tasting, and listening. Who goes quiet when Webb enters a room versus who goes quiet when Sergeant Major Okafor walks in, not the same set of people. And the gap between those sets tells her something about where the actual authority flows beneath the official rank structure. Which staff NCOs the junior officers trust to solve real problems versus which ones they perform compliance for. The working group that stayed in the administrative building until 2200 3 nights ago and filed no record of it. A name she has now heard from 3 separate individuals in 3 separate conversations. Each time followed by the specific brief pause that signals the speaker has thought something they do not want to be caught thinking. She is doing intelligence work. The appearance of an isolated, embarrassed contractor is the most effective cover she has worn in 4 years, and she is not wasting a single minute of it. She eats another forkful of food she cannot taste and files a new data point. The way the table of 4 near the window dropped their conversation when Webb passed and resumed it the moment he left. Not deference, relief. The kind of relief that belongs to people who are waiting for something to end. She controls her breathing. 4 in, hold 4. 4 out, hold 4. The story will keep improving in transit. She is already done with it. By 12:30, she is in the computer access terminal room running a systems diagnostic she requested through proper channels 24 hours earlier. The secondary partition authentication requires a 24-character string, a hardware token, and a biometric scan in a specific unlisted sequence. Most operators need 4 to 6 minutes. They keep a laminated reference card in the desk drawer for exactly this purpose. She enters it in 8 seconds. No card. No pause. Staff Sergeant Delgado, 24 years old, running the room from the far desk, watches this happen. He has been in this room long enough to understand that what he just watched cannot have happened. He finds something else to look at. In his experience, finding something else to look at is usually the correct response to things that cannot have happened. Rhodes, arriving to submit a supply requisition, stands in the doorway. He watches her pull up a maintenance log with no business in the partition she just accessed. He watches her cross-reference 3 timestamps against a routing table she does not look up. She moves through it the way you move through a space you know by feel, rather than by sight. He watches her make a single annotation in a data field that, as far as he knows, most operators on this installation are not aware exists. She logs out, pockets the note, leaves. The requisition does not get submitted. She controls her breathing. 4 in, hold 4. 4 out, hold 4. Gunnery Sergeant Torres arrives at the terminal room at 13:42 to follow up on a maintenance flag 6 days overdue. Casual rotation, rank tabs on the collar, no name tape. She passes him in the corridor without adjusting her pace. Gunnery Sergeant, she says, the acknowledgement of someone who already knows something they have not yet been told. His rank is not on his uniform. He has not introduced himself. Torres stops, turns. She is 6 steps gone and not looking back. He finds Rhodes at the coffee station 3 minutes later. Neither speaks first. You noticed, Torres says. Not a question. Rhodes stirs his coffee slowly. He is thinking about a program at a facility in Coronado that most people in this building lack the clearance to know produces the kind of graduates it produces. He is thinking about her sidearm, visible for 4 seconds when she reached across the desk. Left side retention carry, 2 degrees off standard regulation, the kind of angle modification that gets trained into the body until it is faster than deliberate thought and does not look like a modification anymore. It just looks like the way the person carries a weapon. He is thinking about the scar on the inside of her left forearm, glimpsed when the sleeve shifted as she reached for her pencil. Just above the wrist. Jagged. Not clean. Not the edges of a surgical incision. The kind of scar left by shrapnel, or by being a fraction of a second too slow when something metal detonates very close by. He is thinking about the full recovery protocol for shrapnel damage to the forearm. 14 weeks minimum before full grip strength is restored, and about how her grip on that pencil had showed no residual impairment whatsoever. Not a tremor. Not a compensation pattern. Nothing. He is thinking about a program designation he encountered on a document 11 years ago that he was cleared to transport but not to read. Go handle your flag, he tells Torres, and stay wide of Webb's people today. Torres nods. He looks at the door she walked through. He looks back at Rhodes. He leaves without asking the follow-up question that is clearly forming behind his eye, because some specific accumulation of experience teaches you that when the answer is already arriving, the question is just noise in the way. She controls her breathing. 4 in, hold 4. 4 out, hold 4. The afternoon does not relent. By 14:50, Webb has called his senior staff to the war room table in the administrative building. 4 officers, a legal coordinator, and an intelligence officer who has been on base 13 days and has spent 6 of them quietly building questions he has not yet found the right moment to ask. The credential packet she carried through the gate 11 days ago is under formal review. The problem Webb presents is precise. Her contracting unit does not appear on any deployment roster at any classified or unclassified access tier available to him. This is either an administrative error or it is something else. He does not believe it is an administrative error. She is escorted to his office at 15:23. 2 MPs at the door, his staff arranged behind him in the positioning of a chosen audience, not a working team. Name, Webb says. Reeves, rank. The packet covers assignment structure, colonel. I asked your rank. Specialist on paper. The rest is in the packet. The packet creates questions. The contact chain in the packet answers them. He leans forward on the desk. His voice drops, not louder, lower. The register a certain kind of man uses when he wants the room to understand that quiet is more consequential than loud. I have the authority to hold you here pending full credential review. I have the authority to flag your clearance during that process. A flag is permanent. You understand what a permanent clearance flag does to a career. She looks at him. Not defiantly. In the specific, measured way of a person who is holding considerably more information than the room currently contains and has made a deliberate choice about how much of it to share. Yes, sir. Then I would strongly suggest. My orders are in the packet. My documentation is in the packet. My contact chain for verification is in the packet. I have nothing to add that is not already documented. He stares at her for 2 seconds. Something flickers across his face, just for a heartbeat, there and gone. Then his expression reforms into its performance. She controls her breathing. 4 in, hold 4. 4 out, hold 4. By 15:51, her credentials are in an evidence bag on his desk, and she is being walked to the security annex. She moves between 2 MPs with the posture of someone who has prepared for exactly this contingency. Not approximately. Exactly. 12 feet by 8. Concrete walls, the paint in its 9th year past its last application, worn to bare gray at the corners. A bench bolted to the wall, rivets slightly off-center. A contractor's indifferent work, left that way. A window near the ceiling, 9 inches tall, 14 inches wide, showing a strip of late afternoon sky, and nothing more. The smell of industrial disinfectant sitting over something older, something the disinfectant has never reached. The accumulated residue of everyone who has ever sat in this room and waited. She sits. She does not pace. She does not examine the door or the bolt placement on the bench or the ceiling above the window. There is nothing in this room that will help her or hurt her. The room is not the problem. The room is just where she waits for what she already set in motion. She checks her watch. This is the near-fail moment, the point at which anyone observing from outside this room would call it finished. Her credentials are in an evidence bag. Her cover identity is being processed through official channels. In 37 minutes, a flag will appear in the verification system. A flag she engineered to trigger a secondary authentication protocol that Webb does not have the clearance to access, the training to interpret, or the contact chain to resolve. He will call it suspicious. He will escalate. And when he escalates, he will set in motion the last sequence he ever should have initiated. She stopped playing by his rules 11 months ago. Her watch reads 16:03. In 21 minutes, at 16:24, an automated encrypted packet reaches Major General Carver's secure terminal at the Pentagon. She filed its parameters before she drove through this base's gate 11 days ago. It carries her operational ID, her classified cover designation, her deployment parameters, and a single binary condition, overdue check-in. That condition activates at 16:24 if she has not transmitted a clearing code from her secondary device. Her secondary device is in the evidence bag with her credentials. She planned for this. In 65 minutes, at 17:08, that packet, authenticated by Carver's office, moves simultaneously to Naval Special Warfare Command, the DIA duty officer, and a federal task force operating from a building in Northern Virginia that appears in no public directory and will not. In approximately 3 hours and 40 minutes, at roughly 1943, Lieutenant Colonel Marcus Webb will come to understand the difference between the kind of authority whose name appears in official directories and the kind that does not exist in any directory at all. Her watch is still on her wrist. No one thought to take it. She accounted for that possibility 14 months ago, when the mission was first drafted, because in this work, the watch is never incidental. It is always the point. 7 years she has been building toward the names on this list. 7 years ago, in a grid sector of Kandahar she can describe from memory: second-story window placement, alley widths, which rooftops held sightlines to the approach route. Her team moved on an extraction that should have been clean. Someone had transmitted their coordinates 40 minutes before they arrived. All 11 of them died. The official record called it a training accident. The investigation lasted 6 weeks. She has been accounting for it ever since, name by name, one confirmed entry at a time. Webb appeared on the list 11 months ago. His network runs through this base. She has spent 11 days confirming what she already knew from the documentation. He is not the last name, but he is close. She controls her breathing. 4 in, hold 4, 4 out, hold 4. The window shows a strip of sky beginning to deepen toward evening. She notes the color and waits. At 17:09, Rhodes makes a quiet detour through the administrative wing. He stops at Webb's aide station. He does not hurry. Hurrying is information. Son, he says, the specific register of a man who has delivered difficult facts in difficult places for nearly 4 decades and no longer requires volume to carry weight. I would be very careful about where this credential situation gets taken from here. Whatever's in that packet, whoever that woman is, I would slow down considerably and be very certain before this goes any further up any chain. The aide, 23 years old, 18 months on base, well-organized and competent at his job, looks up with the polite, efficient confidence of someone whose colonel has the matter under control. The colonel is handling it, Sergeant. Rhodes nods once. His jaw tightens. He returns to the mess hall. He takes his corner seat. He opens nothing. He watches the door. At 17:44, they bring her back through. Procedurally, she has items in a storage locker adjacent to the main hall, and the authorized transit route passes through the mess hall itself. Webb had no operational reason to be present for this. The process at this stage did not require him. He chose to be there, stepping through the east entrance as the escort came through, because 22 people remained at late rotation, and something in him needed this closed in front of witnesses, the same way it had been opened in front of witnesses, because a performance without an ending is not a performance. He steps out. His boots make their sound on the concrete, approaching, deliberate. The sound of someone who owns the floor they are walking on. He begins a sentence. Protocol. What happens next? The natural consequences of documentation that does not hold up under proper review, and his hand closes around her forearm. Not to restrain. The MPs are doing that. To make a declaration. One final physical statement about whose installation this is, and who moves through it at whose discretion, in front of the 22 people still watching, because the audience is present, and the statement needs to be made. His grip tightens. Her sleeve rides up. The tattoo is on the inside of her left forearm, above the wrist. A trident over a skull rendered in fine black lines, not decorative, not personal. Not the kind of marking anyone on this base has the classified access level to correctly interpret. Below the trident, the number 7. In a specific typeface used at one classification tier above the highest level present in this building. A tier that has no formal name in any document most flag officers have ever encountered. Below that, 4 characters of operational designation. Not a rank indicator. Not a unit number. A classification stamp, the kind that belongs to a program removed from General Department of Defense records 5 years ago, absent from every accessible directory since, and known in full to fewer than 50 people in the current federal government. From 11 feet away, Rhodes sees it. His coffee cup stops moving. His hand holds it 2 inches below his mouth, and it will remain there for 4 full seconds, while his body processes the tattoo, the trident, the skull, the number, the designation, before his mind catches all the way up with what his eyes delivered. He saw something like it once. On a document. 11 years ago. A document he was cleared to carry across a facility and not to open. He has thought about that document in the years since, not often. Occasionally, he is no longer thinking about it occasionally. His hand begins to shake. Not dramatically. The small, specific tremor of a body that has recognized something before the mind has caught all the way up with it. His mouth forms the shape of 2 syllables. His eyes are still on the tattoo. Torres is at the condiment station 7 feet away. He hears it. He will spend the next 4 days deciding whether he actually heard what he heard, and whether what he saw on her arm was really what he thinks he saw. He will eventually conclude that it was, on both counts. Ghost 7. Outside. Sound. Not one vehicle. The controlled simultaneous deceleration of 3 vehicles arriving at speed under a priority protocol. Not easing in. Not slowing gradually. Arriving. The specific mechanical weight of doors opening before the chassis has technically stopped. The sound of trained drivers completing a priority arrival without the luxury of doing it slowly. 3 black SUVs in the east parking lot, visible through the glass, doors already open before the vehicles have finished their approach. Not standard transport. Not nearly. Command configuration. The kind of arrival whose decision was made before anyone in this building sat down for lunch, and whose vehicles have simply been moving toward this moment since. Webb has not released her arm. The glass doors open. The mess hall detonated. Not with noise, with the physics of 22 people ceasing all voluntary motion within a single second. A steel tray struck the floor somewhere near the back. Not dropped, knocked free by a hand that stopped receiving instructions when the mind stopped processing what was in front of it. The impact rang off the polished concrete in the complete absence of everything else. Every tray sound, every voice, every footstep, and kept ringing. The AC unit overhead became the loudest object in the building. A fork reached the floor near the far window tables. A chair moved 2 inches, unguided, near the service window, an exhale that was not a decision. The silence had weight, not emptiness, density, the specific mass of 22 people holding every involuntary physical response in suspension at once. A boot scuffed tile near the south wall, a badge tapped the back of a chair. The small sounds did not break the silence. They gave it texture. They were the sound of the silence itself pressing on everything in the room. 2 federal agents came through the door first. Dark suits. Credentials already in hand, not being produced, already displayed. The precise detail of people who did not arrive here to make introductions or establish context. Behind them, a 2-star general in service dress, composed in the way that is built over decades until the composure no longer requires effort. Behind him, 2 more figures. Their credentials were at a level that took the room a moment to correctly read. But it took Webb 4 seconds, and at the end of the 4th second his face had moved through its 3 phases. Recognition, the specific architecture of denial, and something beneath both of them that was not performance. Something real. The kind of fear that arrives when the thing you've been standing on turns out not to be solid. His hand released her arm. She smoothed her sleeve. The tattoo was gone. The general stepped forward. He did not raise his voice. For the record, and for the clear understanding of every person currently present in this facility, this individual is Commander D. Reeves, Naval Special Warfare Command, operating under classified operational designation Ghost 7, Special Programs Directorate. He held the pause the way a weight is held before it is placed. Her authority on this installation supersedes every rank in this room, including my own. Every person present, including myself, answers to her authority. His hand came up. The salute moved slowly from his side, arm rising through its full arc, hand reaching the precise angle at the brow. The formal geometry of military respect rendered at a pace that allowed every person in the room to register each individual component. 4 counts, perfectly crisp at the edge. The agents followed, civilian trained, slightly imprecise in form, entirely correct in intention. The officers at the center table, the ones who had spent 2 years learning, without instruction, which direction the laughter was supposed to go, raised their hands. One by one, not simultaneously, each person's understanding arriving in sequence, each one running the same calculation and finding the same single answer. The logistics captain, the 2 lieutenants near the east windows, the intelligence officer 13 days on base, who had spent 6 of them building questions about irregularities in the outbound communications logs. He raised his hand, and the questions answered themselves. Rhodes raised his last. He had moved from the condiment station to a position 5 feet from the general, while the rest of the room was still working out its answer. He stood there, 62 years old, 37 years behind him, the particular stillness of a man who is not experiencing the absence of emotion, but its complete and deliberate management, and raised his hand. His salute was not different in form. Correct, precise, regulation. It was different in what it was made of. The others saluted because the calculation resolved and produced one answer. Rhodes saluted because he had known since the terminal room, since the corridor outside, since she said gunnery sergeant to a man whose name she did not have and whose rank was not on his uniform. He had spent 45 minutes watching the picture form piece by piece, and at 17:09, in the corridor outside Webb's aid station, he had made a choice. He could have said what he was seeing. He chose not to. He let her work. A chosen salute, not ordered, given from knowledge. She returned it. Webb did not salute. His hands were at his sides in the total absence of everything they usually knew how to do. The agents moved into position at either side of him, without drama. One of them said, "Colonel Webb, if you'll come with us," in the flat, professional register of someone who has delivered that sentence to many men who were entirely certain it could never apply to them, and who has long since stopped being surprised by the expression on their faces when they discover otherwise. He went. Through the side door. Without ceremony. Without a final statement, with nothing but the institutional machinery of formal charges, and the 11 months of documentation that has been building in a building that does not appear on any base directory. She did not watch him go. She was already thinking about tomorrow. The mess hall cleared by degrees. Some immediately. Some after a pause in which staying longer seemed like it might eventually produce comprehension. 43 witnesses who had come in for a noon meal and will spend years working out how to tell people who were not there what they witnessed. She stood alone in the empty hall for a moment. Then she went outside. He grabbed her arm to show her what authority looks like when it belongs to you. He forgot she had spent 11 months inside his network, below his sight line, moving through his operation at a level he did not know to look for, and that the arm he grabbed was the one with the tattoo. The one carrying his name on a list he had never known existed. The east fence catches the last horizontal light at this hour, coming in low across the training range, bending in the particulate matter from the firing lanes, shifting the spectrum toward amber and then violet as the angle deepens. Her watch reads 1843. The sky is that exact color. The specific orange and purple she has watched from enough perimeter fences, in enough places, at the close of enough operations, to recognize as what the work looks like when it moves one name closer to done. Webb's charges are in process. The documentation built over 11 months. There are people whose function is to make sure it holds. He is not the last name. One name on the list still has no face. Thermal imaging. 7 years ago, a rooftop in Kandahar, present when the coordinates were transmitted, visible for 5 seconds before disappearing into a building that was empty when the team cleared it 90 minutes later. He moved when she surfaced this mission. He moved again 3 months after that. He is tracking the investigation from somewhere. He knows she is closing in. Tomorrow is a different problem. Tonight, 11 people on a report filed as a training accident are one step closer to what they are owed. Justice isn't loud. It's patient, and patience, in the right hands, is the most dangerous weapon in any arsenal. Somewhere, on a device with no registration and no recoverable history, a burner phone receives a message. 4 characters, no sender, no context. The kind of message that is never needed either. He is already moving. Every soldier carries a story that few ever hear. Listen with your heart. Thank you for staying and watching. Subscribe to MVP Stories for more.